Hello everyone, my name is Marco Landry and today I'm going to be replacing the rear caliper bracket on my Yamaha R3 with a captive rear caliper bracket from FastFrank. So for those of you who spend a lot of time at the racetrack, that's going to be a life-changing modification because it will definitely simplify the process of changing the rear wheel very quickly and very easily. On top of this, I already have the captive wheel spacers and the TST captive chain adjusters as well. So with these three items, it will definitely simplify the process of changing the rear wheel on your bike. So if you're interested in seeing how to install that bracket, stay right there and we'll get started right now. All right, folks, welcome back. So for those of you who are like me and are track junkies or spend a lot of time at the racetrack, having an easy way to change your tires definitely makes your experience at the racetrack a lot more enjoyable and a lot more simpler as well. So on this R3 right now, as I mentioned in the intro, I have the captive wheel spacers. I also have the TST captive chain tensioners, and every time I change my rear wheel I'm struggling with the caliper bracket. So in order for me to make this easier, I normally take a bunch of tie wraps and I tie wrap the bracket or the caliper in place so it doesn't move too much and I'm able to slide the wheel in. It's still a bit of an issue, not an issue, but it's still a bit of a challenge because I have to go and get some zip ties, attach everything, line up everything, and it takes a few extra minutes. And when you add all these extra minutes in the course of a weekend, sometimes I'll spend a lot of time swearing and trying to find tire wraps and readjust everything. So the goal of having this new bracket is that now the caliper will stay in place and it's going to stay aligned, and you simply have to push your wheel in and you're done. So definitely a much simpler and easier process. These brackets come with the chain puller and the springs, and the main difference from the actual OEM bracket is that there are two small holes here that you can see. I'm not sure if the camera will catch this properly here, but these two small holes are lining up with your chain puller as well. Actually, let me take this out of the package here. So what happens is that you will simply attach with some bolts, you will attach your puller to that bracket and everything will stay in place, and that bracket will always be close to your swing arm and it will always be aligned with your hole for your axle. So great concept. Definitely makes your life easier at a racetrack, and I think that's going to be a great time saver and probably a lot less swearing when you're removing and swapping your rims. So I'm going to reposition the camera and we'll start the installation process. And by the way, this unit is selling for $200 US, and the FastFrank company got purchased recently by I1 Moto. So for those of you who don't know who I1 Moto is, they are the manufacturer of the Sharkskins bodywork. So I'm a big fan of I1 Moto. I bought a lot of stuff from I1 Moto in the past. The owner, Fred, is a super nice guy, very knowledgeable, very helpful, very responsive. So for me, this is great because I purchased a lot of items from these guys, and I'm very excited about this acquisition because I think it will be a great addition to the I1 Moto portfolio of products. Okay, so the first step in doing all of this is that you will need to remove the wheel. After that, you will need to remove the plate on the swing arm, and obviously you will have to remove the chain puller as well. It comes with a spring obviously here, so this will no longer be needed after that. And the other thing you need to do as well is you need to remove the caliper from the bracket. So in order for you to do this, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but for me, normally what I like to do is mount the bracket or the caliper on the swing arm, and I normally take one of these quick grips here. So you can see one of these, and I'll just attach this or apply some pressure on the caliper plate and the swing arm to sandwich everything together. So now everything is nice and solid, and it's a bit easier to remove the caliper when the bracket is attached solidly on the swing arm. So the next step after that is that you can take your 12mm wrench and you can simply just undo that bolt in the back. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you don't put too much strain on your brake line so that you don't cause a kink or create a kink in that line. So the next step will be to take a pair of needle nose pliers and remove the cotter pins. So there's 2 of them. So just be extra careful and gentle with these. You don't want to lose these on the floor or drop them on the floor. So remove these 2 pins, and after that you can remove that that retaining rod here or bolt, and then you'll end up having 1 pad in your hands here, and also the second one here will just swing down. There's a little pad that will come off, that's on top of the pad itself, and then you should be able to simply slide everything out very easily and the bracket will come out, and now you are all set. So just remember how everything is coming apart here. You'll see that you still have this this bolt here, so when you remove it, there's like a bushing here, so you want to make sure that you don't damage that bushing and keep it, because you still need to reuse it on the new bracket. So then you can finish unscrewing this here, and we'll reassemble everything in the reverse order. But before I do so, I'm going to clean the brake here, the rear brake, and then we'll reinstall everything. So the next step now will be to install the rest of the captive bracket. So we're gonna install the puller. So what you want here is to have this side, the side with the L-shaped metal bracket, you want this to be on the inside of the swing arm. And another way to look at it is that you want the bigger holes here that have been drilled to be on the outside of the swing arm and the small one on the inside. So you can simply push this in, and now we'll open this bag here and get all the remaining hardware needed. So here you got your springs and your bolts that will be needed. So instead of going with the 2 springs that have been sent here, I'm just going to reuse that 1 spring that came with the OEM equipment. I don't think that using 2 small springs will be more efficient, so I'm gonna forego using what's been sent. So before you reassemble everything here, you can put your tensioner cap here, and with the bolts inserted, if you pull the tensioner, you'll see where these bolts hit on both sides, and this is where you will need to file this down so that you can move the axle block all the way in or out. So that's going to be very important that you do this to be able to have the full length of play when the axle block is moving. So I have my marks here. So now what you can do is simply take a small file, like a needle file, and you can just line this up and file it. It might take a bit of time. You don't need to go too far. You need to do about 4mm deep on both sides, or about the width of that bolt, so that you can have that extra space or that extra play. So you can use the file. If the file is too slow for you, you can use a drill bit and just file it after that to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Okay, so when it's done, it's going to look like this. You'll have 2 small grooves on both sides, and your screw here, or your bolt, should be able to fit on both sides in that slot. If I put the tensioner in and I put the bolt in, you will see that I can bring it all the way in, and now I have the full travel on both sides. So that's how it's going to look like once it's done. When you are ready to reassemble the caliper and the bracket, obviously, on the chain puller, you will need to put some blue Loctite on these little bolts here. So if you ever need to disassemble that part after that, you'll definitely need to apply some heat because they will be fairly well anchored into those threads. So what you can do as well before you finalize the assembly here is take a bit of grease and just a screwdriver and put a little bit of grease on the swing arm so that the caliper bracket will move a bit more easily on the swing arm. And I have my 3mm internal X wrench here. So I'm going to try to line up everything. And this is a bit of trial and error here in order to get this right. There we go. So now I'm going to snug the first one in. I won't go full tilt right away. I'm just going to take the second one and we're going to line this up as well, snug it up, and see how it looks here. Alright, so here we go. So these are tiny little bolts. You want to make sure that you don't cross thread them. So take your time, make sure that you're properly lined up. And they're quite long, so be patient when you're doing it as well. So I'm gonna go all the way here. I'm gonna secure this in place. And I'm gonna stop as soon as it's snug. And now, if you try to move it, even with the grease, it's not gonna move because obviously everything is being sandwiched very solid here. So what you want to do is to undo each of these bolts by 1/4 turn. So I'm going to undo this by 1/4 turn. And same thing with the one in front. I'm going to undo this by 1/4 turn. And now my bracket is moving properly on that guide on the swing arm. So now I'm going to reassemble the captive tensioner from TST. So I'm going to reassemble the last few steps here, the washer and the two nuts. And I'll do a video as well on these chain tensioners because I think this is a great idea and I really like them. So stay tuned. I'll have something very soon to explain the process and the benefits of these TST captive chain tensioners. Okay, so I'm just gonna adjust the tensioner to be the same on both sides. So it's 4 lines on both sides here. Secure these in place here. Okay, for the reassembly of the caliper on the bracket, you have to make sure first of all that you have the little 2 copper clip that go on top of the bracket, so you'll have one ear and one ear. So basically you just take them from the ear bracket, they're going to be ear and ear, you just lift them up on both sides and reinsert them on the new bracket. Next step is that you'll take the bolt that goes in the back here, you can screw it in place You can put just a little bit of grease on either this part here, or you can put it in the bushing, whatever you prefer. You don't need to put a lot, just a little bit. And then one thing to keep in mind here is that when you're going to reassemble the brake pads, this portion here goes in front and will sit on the copper. The back little notch here, same thing, it will go and will sit on that copper area on the back as well. So make sure that you keep this in mind when you reinstall this. Next step is that you will take your caliper and you will insert that bushing over the pin of that bolt here that we just assembled. And that's going to require a bit of muscle there. You just press on it and it's going to slide in. And once this is done, you can put your back or your right pad on. Just put it in the right place here. And you can take the second pad and do the same thing. Just insert it over. No, you'll have to put that little ring on top of that, the head of the bolt in the back. And then you can swing it up. Make sure that your shims are still there as well. And then you will simply reinsert the pin. And then you can put the little clips or the cotter pin clips. And now you can screw that bolt in on the side here. Snug it up with a 13mm wrench. And same thing with this one here in front. You're going to use a 6mm internal X and resecure this in place. This one is always a bit tricky. It's not very shallow. So just to be on the safe side, I like to give it a few taps and then it won't damage the internal X pattern. And once this is done, make sure that everything is good. You can pump the brakes a few times to make sure that your pads will collapse together, and it does, so which is perfect. Then I can stretch this back on here. And once this is done, we are ready to reassemble the wheel and see if that's going to make a difference. So a moment of truth. So we're going to put the chain on. I'm going to use my pit bull wedge here just to help me out. So everything looks good here. Okay, well, it's working, but it's not super easy. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to bevel the brake pads just a little bit on both sides underneath, so that when I push the wheel, it's gonna push the two calipers apart. So I'm gonna remove the wheel, and I'm gonna try to file the edge of the brake pad at the bottom, so this way it should in theory be easier to push the wheel in. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. I just used my Dremel. I had initially just did this part here, but that wasn't enough, so I redid this part as well. So I'm hoping that now, just by coming at this angle here, I should be able to push the wheel in. So once you're done filing this down, use some brake cleaner to clean it up. And when you look at it here, you can see the gap. So now I'm just going to reassemble this and see if it's going to be easier to pop the wheel on. Okay, well, I'm back. I thought I was done, but I wanted to test this once more. And I exchanged a few emails with Fred at i1Moto. And as I mentioned earlier, the service is amazing. We responded right away. We exchanged a few emails, and I realized that I probably discarded the instructions or I didn't get them. But anyhow, we shared some instructions with me. And one of the things was with the blue Loctite and releasing or untorquing those bolts by a quarter turn so that the axle block could move freely on the swing arm. And the other thing as well that the instructions were stating is that when you're putting the wheel back on, put some wood or something to raise the wheel so that the wheel can just ride in, and after that you can put the chain and you can put your axle, and that should be it. So that's what I'm going to test right now. I've measured this, and obviously the other option would be to lower that stand so that it's not as high. But for now, I just want to test this out and see if that's going to be a bit easier. So basically, I'm just going to roll this in, go all the way in, put my chain on, and once the chain is on, you can bring the wheel back. So much easier. The trick is really to raise the wheel. After that, push the wheel in, and by having the pads grinded a little bit, the wheel just goes in, it spreads the pad, and then after that you're able to lift it and put your axle, put the washer, put the nut, and you're done. So now it's so much better. All right, folks, that was the installation process for the FastFrank rear caliper captive bracket. It's definitely worth the investment once you understand how to install this and you have the proper guidance. It's super easy, and changing the tires now I figure will take no more than a couple of minutes. And if you are just a road rider, obviously it doesn't really make a big difference just for a road. But if you are spending a lot of time at the racetrack, or if you are racing and being able to change from your slick to your rein very quickly, that's definitely going to be an advantage to have this type of setup. And obviously the captive caliper bracket is one thing. You also need the captive chain tensioner, and having the captive wheel spacers as well will definitely be the proper setup to make your life easier. So on a scale of 1 to 10, the installation process is not super complex, but you just have to be extra careful, because if you've never worked with the calipers and the brake pads, you want to be absolutely certain that you'll do this properly, because that's very critical to being safe on the track or the road. And I guess that's it for now. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, as usual, post them below or connect with me on social media. And until next time, stay safe, ride safe, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.